Luna Park and Dino's Wonder Wheel are a set of amusement parks located directly next to each other on Coney Island just outside of New York City. They're home to iconic rides such as the Coney Island Cyclone, the Wonder Wheel, Thunderbolt, and a ton of other amusement rides for families. The parks are situated right alongside a boardwalk. You have the water on one side, the city on another. It's a staple of New York City, about as touristy as it gets. And in this video, we're going to dive into the different rides and attractions of the parks, talk about pricing, things you should know, and also discuss a little bit of history of the area, because Coney Island is well known around the world as like America's playground. It's appeared in countless movies and TV shows, so it's something that like everyone's got to experience at some point. The Cyclone roller coaster goes back to 1927. It's a city and also a national landmark, and even after almost 100 years still holds up. There's actually a full separate review of the Coney Island Cyclone already up on this channel. Go check it out if you want to hear about that attraction. But that was a staple back of the original Luna Park, which opened back in 1903. They're home to some super old school rides such as an old mill and Virginia reel. That park closed in 1944 after a major fire. And interestingly enough, the current Luna Park has actually no connection to that previous one other than this iteration was named after its honor. In between both Luna Parks, though, there was another amusement park called Astroland. They took up 3 acres of land, operated from 1962 to 2008. After that closed, the city of New York was pushing for a Coney Island restoration project, and the Zamperla Group won a bid to operate the park starting in 2010. Zamperla is the leading manufacturer for many of these attractions. They do rides all across the world. They were originally given a lease to operate the park for 10 years, but obviously, we're past 2020. They're still here, so it's believed that that lease has been renewed for another 10 to 15 years. And when they took over, they added like 19 new attractions, tons of live entertainment, food stands, games, basically anything to make that place feel more lively. Now, what'll be interesting is when eventually their lease ends, what happens there, because they don't own the land. The city of New York does. I guess in theory, they'd either pack up their attractions and go, or another outside operator would come in to manage the park. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on, because that also connects back to Dino's Wonder Wheel, which we'll get to. But at least within Luna Park, we're talking about 8 roller coasters, a total of 36 rides, about 15 acres of land. And this is a glorified carnival in a sense. It is a bunch of rides plopped down on a slab of concrete. Anyone can walk in, you just pay per ride. They do have a wristband so you can do them all, but it's kind of a ripoff because it's only good for up to 4 hours. That is the longest span of time you can have to ride as many rides as you want. There is no all-day pass and there is no season pass. That makes this park kind of a pain to visit. Like, it is so geared towards one-time visitors that it is by nature a turnoff for repeat visitors. And I understand that that's because of its location. This is not set up like a traditional amusement park, but I still wish that they had at least some sort of option for people who are looking for that. Like, I feel bad for the locals who would go all the time otherwise. But the way Luna Park is set up is very strange. It is divided up by different streets separating the various attractions. So you have Cyclone down at one end, then a street separating a bunch of rides, and then you have Dino's Wonder Wheel, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. That is an unrelated, separate amusement park. Then we have another street, and then we're back at Luna Park in a new area called Scream Zone. Hop over another street, there's some go-karts, go one more street over, then there's Thunderbolt and Tony's Express, and then one more street, and there's a carousel. So it gets very, very confusing because to the outside visitor, all this is one big amusement park when the reality is that is not the case. Nothing about the setup is glamorous. It is like the epitome of a city park. The way it's set up is designed so that you walk into it from the boardwalk, do whatever you need, walk back onto the boardwalk, and then visit another area, go back on the boardwalk. There's not really any cohesion between the rides. It's very scattered, next to no landscaping. I don't think I would use the word nice to describe anything really on Coney Island. It's a very unique atmosphere, not for everyone. I noticed as time went on throughout the day, the whole area would get busier and busier. Towards the end of the night, the boardwalk was just flooded with people. Loud music blaring, people trying to sell you stuff left and right. It was extremely overwhelming. If you're looking for something a little bit more dialed back, go in the morning. It was a lot quieter. But since everything here is done essentially on a pay-per-ride system, you're probably going to want to prioritize what to do. I would recommend multiple rides on the Cyclone. Steeplechase is a fun little launch coaster where you're riding on a horse. Tony's Express is a cute little family coaster. That's the newest addition. It's actually intertwined with a flume, but I believe you do have to pay separate for each attraction, even though it's built into like one structure. But I liked that. Thunderbolt is like the most intimidating roller coaster on Coney Island, but it is not a great quality of ride. It's a prototype. It looks amazing in the skyline, but it's not comfortable. So maybe that's something you do once and then move on. Soaring Eagle is a Zamperla Volare. You ride it in this cage that puts you in a flying position. This is a skip in my opinion. And then the rest of the attractions are like small kids rides. So I want to move on from Luna Park and talk about Dino's Wonder Wheel, because as I mentioned, this park is located directly in the middle of Luna Park. The difference is Dino's has been here long before Luna Park. It all started with the Wonder Wheel, which has been an icon of New York City and Coney Island dating back to 1920, so it's over 100 years old. It stands 150 feet in the air and has swinging cars. You'll see these red, white, and blue vehicles. The red and blue ones swing, the white ones do not, so you can have a more traditional Ferris wheel experience if you do those. But it adds this extra level of excitement to your typical Ferris wheel, and it's really cool. I'll say that the swinging isn't as dramatic as I was expecting. I actually did the one over on the West Coast at Disney's California Adventure first, and that one swings a lot, and so this was more dialed back than I expected, but this is also a lot older. From a historical perspective, it's very cool. It's a miracle this thing is even still here. I know back when it first opened, like the main axle in the wheel cracked, and so the whole thing was supposed to get scrapped until someone managed to find a way to keep it going. So absolutely a must-do when you come here to Coney Island. I know at this point it's given over 40 million riders. It's the oldest operating attraction here, and depending on which ticket package you get, it'll come out to being between $10 and like $7.66. And that's because the more credits you buy, the better the value is. You spend $45, you get 50 credits. $80 will get you 100 credits, and unlike Luna Park, there is no wristband package or a season pass option. You have to pay every time you want to ride something. And to add to the confusion, Luna Park tickets do not work at Dino's Wonder Wheel. So imagine you're in the position of someone who bought a 4-hour wristband at Luna Park, and you walk over to Dino's trying to ride the Wonder Wheel or Phoenix, and they won't let you on. Or on the flip side, you purchase tickets at Dino's and then they get turned down at Luna Park. And I hope that changes in the future, because I feel like from a guest experience perspective, offering some sort of wristband where it's like a park hopper where it works at both locations would just make all the difference in the world. Or if you can't do that, then to be honest, maybe you have to have someone come in from the outside and buy out both groups. Now you have one big park. But the logistics of that might be a little challenging because, again, Zamperla leases Luna Park. Dino's Wonder Wheel is family owned. 13 different family members have been keeping this park going every day, and they've done a great job keeping up with the place. They are currently home to 3 roller coasters. Phoenix is the new one. It's a Vekoma family suspended coaster. A lot of fun, super smooth, and it goes around twice. So it's even better value for your money. And the second run, believe it or not, is actually faster than the first. Those wheel bearings heat up from that first lap around, and so it really gets this thing going. It's awesome. It's a custom layout. One of the best rides in the area for sure. There's also 2 other roller coasters here, mainly for kids. I know the family tries to add new rides whenever they can, typically like every other year. But when they can't add something new, they'll at least try to update the park, keep it going, doing things such as repainting the wall art, which is probably one of my favorite things about Dino's Wonder Wheel. Because even though atmosphere-wise, it's very similar to Luna Park where it's a bunch of rides plopped down, basically a glorified carnival, at least they try and dress it up a little by throwing lots of colors at it. Very cool creative designs, and also paying homage to a lot of the history here. And you find that within Luna Park as well. What will be interesting to see is if Dino's Wonder Wheel can expand in the future, because right now they appear very landlocked, significantly smaller than Luna Park, but there's this huge chunk of land directly next to the park that if they were able to buy it, you could fit a decent sized coaster there. The only challenge will be fighting off the people who want to build a casino there, but personally I'm in favor of a big new ride here. I think that's way better. So overall, to wrap up Coney Island, both parks offer some fun attractions. The Cyclone is the real winner here. Thunderbolt may look scarier, but it's not as quality, and that's something that you'll really have to look for when you're walking around these parks, because both parks often will opt to install smaller cheaper attractions so they have more of them instead of putting in like one big quality ride. That's why I love Phoenix so much, because it's exactly that. It's one nice, well-designed coaster. And personally, I think that's a better direction to go in. But I also understand the appeal of wanting just as many rides as possible, because Coney Island can get busy. They want a lot of rides for capacity purposes, and then also they can make more money off of them. There's more for people to do. Unfortunately, though, just because of the nature of its setup, a lot of this stuff is a one and done. So while I recommend visiting Coney Island, I also don't blame you if afterwards you decide to go somewhere else as opposed to coming back. My first visit here was back in 2013, and I didn't return for another 10 years. And it's not because I never visited New York City. Actually, I went to New York all the time, but I would always opt to go somewhere else, somewhere nicer, maybe more quality attractions, and oftentimes you can find that without spending as much. Because the reality is, you're paying for the convenience. Coney Island is a part of New York City. You're gonna pay New York prices. They charge that much because they can get away with it, and it's clear from how busy it is. So you really have to weigh, are my dollars worth this experience? Or can I find something better elsewhere for less? The answer is probably, but you're gonna have to leave the city to do it. And I think that's how they get you. They want people who are in New York to stay in New York. So just some things to keep in mind, but let me know down in the comments below if you visited Luna Park and Dino's Wonder Wheel, if you agree with the points that I brought up. If you think there's anything I missed, be sure to let me know, and of course stay tuned for more park reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.